Good morning and welcome to Coffee Talk. I hope everybody slept well. Everybody woke up okay. So I have gotten messages over the last year from people who say, I'm going through a hard time, but I don't have anyone to talk to because my closest friend went through a harder time. And it always sort of boggles my mind when people feel like they can't speak to their support system because of who maybe went through a harder time. Life is hard. We all go through impossible tests. Some of us more than others, but everybody experiences heartache, and everybody's heartache is their capacity, right? I have friends who would have lost their kids at Railroad Park and stayed calm and been like, they have to be here somewhere. I will find them. I was not that person. I don't have the capacity for that type of calmness in that situation. I just don't. It's not who I am. I have called my mother. I'm going to give you very specific examples. I have called my mother numerous times in my marriage to talk about trying times with Michael. Things that are, almost broke us. Things that I worry will break us in the future. Never once has my mother said to me, "Oh, Jamie, I lost my husband. I'm a widow. So I would give anything for one more day to fight with your father. So suck it up." Because if she had, I can't compete with that. My heartache and my struggle and my marriage can't compete with her losing my dad. Right? We know that. Much in the way that my mother's best friend lost a child. So if we were going to continue that behavior, my mother could say, "I lost my husband. I'm so sad. I miss my husband. I lost my husband." And her best friend could look at her and go, "Susan, I lost my child. So until you lose a child, don't talk to me about heartache." Well, I mean, we could do this forever, right? How do we, as brothers and sisters, comfort the struggle of the person who needs us without allowing it to feel like it negates our pain? Because perspective is one thing. I have had friends over the last 22 years, 23 years, say things to me like, "Oh, my dad is so annoying," or "My dad, whatever." And I will say things like, "Work it out," or "Talk to him," or "Go get him the bagel," or whatever. I know he's annoying, but you know what I went through with my dad, and just figure it out. Because I do think some perspective is necessary, but to turn to somebody that I care about and say, "Well, my dad's dead. How do you think that makes me feel?" I mean, that's an impossible sort of situation to put somebody in. So it got me thinking about how many times we try to one up the person's pain next to us. They say they're going through a hard time, and we either A, feel like it somehow negates what we've been through, so we need to check them on their pain, or B, we want to let them know, like, "Well, you've been through that, but I've been through worse." And, it's like, is there a way that we can be sympathetic, empathetic, loving, supportive, while still acknowledging our own experiences and not allowing anything that anyone else is going through to negate our own growth and our own tests and our own challenges and our own heartache, but truly be there for someone without making them feel like they're whining. So this is another example. I have a girlfriend who's overweight, and I was commenting to her after Charlie was born that having 3 kids in 5 years had destroyed my body in more ways than one. Forget what my veins look like. Forget the fact that I pee my pants 6 times a day. Forget the fact that my boobs started here and end now somewhere, I don't know, around the equator. That I had like this 3 to 5 pounds that just, I was trying to decide, is this part of the new me? Or is there a way that it will actually come off? Because I've tried the healthy eating and the exercise, whatever, and it's just not going anywhere. My bras were literally cutting into my body like assault weapons. My underwear was cutting off my circulation. And I was like, okay, am I at the place in my life where I've had 3 children and I need to just buy new bras and underwear? Or is there something else I could be doing to get this weight off? And her response to me was, until you have 50 pounds to lose, don't cry to me about 5 pounds. Well, what does that do for anyone? How do we, and this has been years, and she and I are so good, and it's fine. And we actually talked about it at that time. I said to her, now what am I supposed to do with that? Honestly, what am I supposed to do with that? I came to you because we've been friends for 20 years, and you shut me down in a way that like makes me feel terrible. Where do I go from here? When somebody comes to you in a time of need and says, blank, 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 my mother this, my husband that, my weight this, and you've been through worse, it is okay. It is okay to extend whatever grace and advice and kindness and understanding you have without it feeling like it somehow negates what you've been through. Now, if you're in a relationship or friendship with someone that you feel just consistently is whining about the same thing over and over and over again, perhaps that's a different conversation, right? Perhaps saying, listen, I notice over the last couple of years, you've done nothing but complain about your marriage. Perhaps it's time to go to counseling or think about separating. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when someone comes to you and says, you know, I'm going through a really hard time in my marriage, not to remind them that, you know, if my mother reminded me that my father died every time that I needed her regarding my marriage, how many times do you think I would talk to her? Once, and then never again, because I can't compete with that. And I shouldn't have to. And you shouldn't have to. What you go through in your day, in your life, matters. It is not a competition for who's in more pain. I have had people say to me over my baby loss, well, at least the baby wasn't born and then died. Well, or at least it wasn't Olivia. Well, right. Absolutely. Right. Thank God it wasn't my Olivia, right? Doesn't mean that what I'm going through isn't excruciating and paralyzing and awful. And I know what they're trying to do, but we've got to find a better way to extend ourselves to each other without constantly one-upping heartache, you know? Better to say, I'm going through a really hard time in my marriage, and to have somebody like my mom say, I remember when your father and I went through that, you know? Let her find a way to connect with me and say, you know, his death is not the marker for everything. They had 20 some odd years together. There was a lot of love and fighting, I would imagine, and negotiating and compromising, and 4 children. And there was so much there. There was so much substance in that relationship. To just go to his death negates all of that for me. Like, I'm so grateful, Mom, if you're watching, I am so grateful that you don't throw Daddy's death in my face. You try to really help me, because if you did, I would stop talking to you about Michael. Let's just be mindful of that, really, because it makes it hard for people to talk about what's going on with them. I love you so much today. Have a great day.